The word toxic masculinity comes with a tale as old as time, and many of us have suffered from living still in the man's world. One of the definitions of the concept is that it is the constellation of socially regressive and masculine traits that serve to foster domination, the devaluation of women, homophobia, and propagates verbal and physical violence. But I think many of us can define it one way or another based on the impact it has in our everyday life, in every culture, and in every country. The idea of how is supposed to act a man, which is strength, dominance, self-sufficiency, and lack of emotion and empathy, is harmful in so many ways. To women, to children searching for role models, to the LGBTQI community, which suffers greatly from hate and discrimination, as well as to the men themselves. Today, in our part of the Volume Up Project podcast, we will discuss this broad topic as well as we'll be searching for possible solutions to the problem it's causing. With Ro from Greece, Racha and Lea from France, and Inigo from Spain. My name is Aleksandra and I'm from Poland, and I will be helping out our beautiful participant through their debate. So, let's start. Our first question is, which facts do you think we associate with the term masculinity?
I think that the main quality we associate with masculinity is a self-confident personality. If men say their emotions, it seems like they are weak and that they don't follow the social rule and the stereotypes. I would also highlight that sometimes we associate the masculinity with the dominance of the woman.
The first thing that comes to my mind is men showing a more dominant behavior, characteristics such as strength, leadership. They usually expected to be more handy and even clever and independent. Things women have been trying to now take back, both in workspace and inside their household.
For me, the stereotype of a man is that he must be independent, have leadership, be able to contain his emotion, don't, like, you're a man, don't do a fuss about it, and to be strong too.
I feel like what society associate the most with masculinity would be that a man has to be strong. He has to show no emotion at all, because we kind of are made to believe that if you're a man and that you show emotion or you cry, then you're not as masculine as you should be. So yeah, I feel like a man has to be protective, has to be in regard of society, of course. He has to be protective. He has to be the one who work and bring money and food to the table. He has to be strong and not show emotion. He has to be kind of fit also, and have a certain physique. So I think that is fact that society associate with masculinity, which is wrong, of course, because then it leads to people thinking that they do not fit in society, which is kind of stupid.
Perfect, thank you guys. Let's proceed. The next one is, how do you think the toxic masculinity changed over the last few decades? Because for sure it's not the same now as it was in the 80s, in the 90s.
The main change is that a few decades ago the perfect relationship was a relationship in which the man overprotects the woman in all the aspects. And nowadays, that kind of relationships are considered as toxic ones, and the ideal relationship is a relationship in which both parts give as much as they receive. There has been a lot of change in the society, but I firmly believe that we still have a long way to do.
Yeah, like Inigo said about power, for me, we see the biggest change in the opportunities women now have. Every single area used to be male-dominated throughout history, which is also exclusively written by men, Like, if you think about it, everything we know about our past is through men's eyes. So all of that is thankfully starting to change. Of course, with patriarchy still making it harder and slower. It will take time, but I'm hopeful now with the feminist movement, things are getting better.
Men no longer have a monopoly on power, and all of this is thanks to the fact that the place of women in society evolved. A lot of feminine movement came out, and thanks to the evolution of gender roles, and what else? Less people conform to traditional.
Yes, I agree with everyone. And also, I would say that, of course, toxic masculinity have changed over the last few decades. We have made such big progress, but I feel like we need to be really focused and keep on going to make even greater changes. And I feel also that I myself witness still too much situation where I hear people that are my age talking to young kids and saying stuff like, "Oh, don't cry like a girl," and that could, for some people, that could be such a small sentence with low impact, but I feel like for me it made such a big impact. And we should not taught younger people to think like that. Young kids, young boys to feel like, oh, if they cry, they are not boys, they are not masculine. So I'm kind of uncomfortable to witness situation like that nowadays, but I feel like in a general point of view, we are making big progress. We just need to really keep going.
Do you think that LGBTQI collective is still suffering discrimination in places like school, university, or work?
Yes, of course, but society is just beginning to accept this community, and it's going to be a heavy fight, but to make it a norm. But it's possible. It's fully possible.
Yeah, I would say that we are in a better place regarding discrimination in school towards LGBTQ plus community. But I feel like, in general, the topic of discrimination in school is very delicate. I would say, though, that once you get to university, it may become a little easier on yourself to be who you are and to show your true colors to people, which is nice. But I feel like we've made progress, of course, but there's still so much thing that needs to be done. And I feel like we should raise awareness towards kids when they are really young, so then they are more understanding, and yeah, I feel like it could change so many behavior, and it would stop kids from being bullying, and maybe it would help with mental health, and also the topic of suicide, because when you're a kid, and so many other kids your age just point you, and put you in a box and say, oh, you're like this and you're not like us, it could be so hard on yourself and your mental health. So I feel like the more we raise awareness in school when kids are young, the better it is.
Pretty much what everyone said. From my point of view as a Greek person, we see baby steps are being made. Only baby, unfortunately. Things are moving forward for queer people, but to this day we still hear about suicides caused by bullying that's connected to sexuality in schools. And also another example is whenever we see a Greek person coming out, there's always discussion around it. People are either defending it or they're against it. It shows that there's still a lot of discrimination in the Greek society, and it unfortunately impacts people of all ages in both workspace and school.
I agree with all that they have said, And I would add that there are several differences between school, work, and university, because at university people are more open-minded, but in the school there is still bullying and sometimes there is no intervention. In Spain also there are a lot of difference between big and university cities where the society is really open-minded and small cities or towns where people are more conventional.
And let's end with the maybe most important question of them all. How can we make a change? How can we protect the younger generation and guard them from the impact of the gender roles that are now all around them?
As I have said before, I think that the main thing we should change is education. We should receive since we are in school workshops about sexual diversity in order to normalize people who don't comply with social conventions. Education we receive during our childhood is the one we usually have forever. For people who grow up in a closed environment, it's hard to change their point of view.
Okay, how to make a change? First, I would say that we did make a change because I feel like people in general are more aware of differences in our society, and that the difference does not mean bad, you know. So that's already a good step that has been taken. But I would say to protect the younger generation, we firstly need to hear them. You know, we need to make people feel like they can be comfortable, they can speak up, and that we will listen to them. Because I feel like in any society you need to feel that you are important. Because if you can't speak up and you know show your true colors, then it can cause a problem. You don't feel heard and you don't feel important. So I feel like to protect them, we really need to make them feel like they are important. and and also I would say that social media can have a really great impact on that, because nowadays we have more I would say celebrities speaking up about who they are, and it is a great really big effort for them to show themselves to the world, kind of. But it inspires, I think, so many young people to also have the courage to be who they are, and you know to show themselves as they are, which is good. So I feel like we just need to be really more, in general, I feel like we should be more in this together, you know what I mean? Like we should hold each other hands. It may sound a little cheesy, but you know, just help people and make them feel comfortable, and listen to them, you know. I feel like that would help younger generation.
So on that, I totally agree with Inigo and Leah. And for me, we need to learn from the youngest age that no one has a defined role, and this is up to them to choose what they want to express.
I agree with everything that's been said. The solution is obviously education, first and foremost, and then representation and inclusiveness. We need to avoid gender roles as much as possible. Life isn't theatre to assign roles to people. So once we stop putting children into boxes, they can have freedom of expression. With that, acceptance will come, because the new norm will be everyone being true to themselves, you know?